Today, I'm going to show you how to screen print a 3-color design with a beautiful puff effect, so your design can pop, literally. But before we start, make sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button because I know you're going to love this lesson. And trust me, there's even better content coming your way. What's up, printers? My name is 𝗧𝗲𝗅𝗡, also known as Milo from Milo Prints, and I'm super excited to be right here in Screen Print Direct's channel to walk you through this awesome screen printing process. Alright, here's everything we're gonna need today. First up, the inks. We're using Rapid Cure ink, black, blue, and red, which is my favorite color, by the way. We're also going to be using the Rapid Cure puff additive to give our design that awesome raised effect. You'll need some spatulas, a scale, and an empty container for mixing. Next, we got our screens. 2 160 mesh screens and 140 mesh screen. Don't worry, I'll explain why we're using a different mesh count in just a bit. Of course, we also need a 𝗧𝗲𝗅𝗍, and you can't screen print without a screen printing press. Now, I'm not going to show you how to register a full 3-color print. That's a whole topic of its own. But here's a quick technique I like to use to get my screens lined up precisely. Take the film that you use to burn your screens and tape it directly to your platen. From there, align each screen to the registration marks on the film. And that's it. Easy peasy. Alright, let's prep our inks, starting with the standard colors. This part is super easy. All you need to do is stir the ink for a good 2 minutes to get them nice and smooth. The softer your ink is, the better it flows through your screen, which means cleaner, more consistent print. Now let's move to the puff print. We're using the red one for this one. The formula is simple. Add 10 to 20% of the Rapid Cure puff additive to the ink of your choice and mix it thoroughly. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Let's turn on the scale. We're going to add our empty container. Boom. Make sure you're in grams. Now we're going to tear that container, go back to 0. So we're going to start with maybe, maybe a couple grams. Maybe 50 grams. We'll start with 50 grams. Boom, we got 53 grams. Now, 10 to 20% of this is between 5 and 10 grams. So we're gonna add between 5 and 10 grams. So once again, we're gonna tear this. It's gonna go back to 0. We're gonna add a little bit of puff additive. Oh, get in there. So we got 3 grams. We need a little more. We got 6. Let's go to 7 probably. 7, 8. Okay. 7 grams. Let me give you a close-up. So we got 7 grams of puff additive and we have 53 grams of ink in there. Next, we're just gonna grab it and we're gonna mix it. Just like that. Easy peasy. Try to mix it for a good 2 minutes. That's it. One of the reasons I love these inks is because they cure at low temperature, just 270 degrees. That makes them super beginner friendly, especially if you don't have access to a conveyor dryer. Plus, it helps prevent scorching on lighter garments, which is a big deal if you're printing on whites or pastels. And as a bonus, curing at low temp speeds up your whole process. Now we're gonna do a test print. Now this is where things get a little bit complicated because prepping your inks and printing the design, it's not that hard. Finding the right temperature so you can have a good puff, it takes a little bit of adjustments here and there because everything is different depending on the equipment you have. But it's nothing we can't figure it out. Actually, let me correct myself. Puffing isn't complicated, but it can be a little tricky if you're new to screen printing. Let me explain why. Puffing is a bit sensitive. If you underheat it, it won't puff up. But if you overheat it, it can actually collapse or deflate. So finding the perfect temperature takes a little trial and error. Don't stress if it takes a few test prints to dial in. Just be patient with it. And once you get it right, the results are totally worth it. So in our first test print, we got it right away. Super easy. Look at that beautiful puff. Now that we got everything dialed in, let me walk you through the printing process from the top. Normally, I like to print from the lightest color to the darkest, but in this case, the red ink is our puff ink, and it needs to be printed last. So we're starting with the blue, then the black, then finishing off with the red. I'm using a 160 mesh screen for both the blue and the black inks because I want a nice opaque print without the ink feeling heavy or rough. Now, for my puff ink, you got a few options. 110 mesh, 60 mesh, or even a 40 mesh. What you choose really depends on your design and how much puff you want. Personally, I like using a 40 mesh because it drops more ink onto the shirt, which gives me a better puff effect. But again, this part is really up to you and your style. Now, let's talk about the curing process. This is where the puffing gets a little tricky. You see, we all use different equipment, so your exact steps might vary a bit. But let me give you a standard method you can follow as a guide. First off, puff ink cures at 270 Fahrenheit, and there are 3 common ways to cure it: a heat gun, a flash dryer, or the best option, a conveyor dryer. For this video, I'm using a flash dryer. It's more consistent and way less tiring than a heat gun, and way more affordable than a conveyor. Plus, I don't own a conveyor. Here's how I do it. Once the shirt is printed, I take it out of my platen and put it on top of it. Then, I slide it under the flash dryer for a good 25 to 30 seconds. But, and this is important, my flash dryer runs hot, around 400 Fahrenheit. So I raised it about 5 to 6 inches above the platen. If I don't, it'll scorch the shirt and the puff won't pop right. This is exactly why test runs are so important before you jump into full production. It gives you time to dial in that perfect distance, time, and temperature for your setup. Now here's the thing. I've done this process many times, and I know my equipment really well. So I don't need to do a bunch of test runs every time. I already put in that work. But just to give you a clear idea of what happens at different cure times, I made 3 examples to show you. The first one is the sweet spot. Cure for around 25 to 30 seconds under my flash dryer. The puff came out nice and clean. No burn, no shrink. This is exactly what we're going for. Now the second one, I pushed it a bit over the limit just for the video. This one was under the flash for about 30 to 38 seconds. You can see the puff still came out pretty nicely, but the surface is starting to look a little shiny, almost scorched. It's not a total fail, but you're definitely on the edge of the puff deflating. And finally, here's what happens when you really overdo it. This one sat under the flash for 38 to 45 seconds. At this point, the puff completely deflated. The texture is flat and baked. This is what you don't want. This is a result of baking the puffing, and it's pretty much unrecoverable. So always take the time to learn your setup, whether it's a flash dryer, a heat gun, or a conveyor. Once you figure it out, it's easy to stay consistent. But until then, test runs are your best friend. Oh, and if you didn't know, I'm from Chicago. And here's a fun fact about my city. In Chicago, it's technically illegal to put ketchup on your hot dog. Okay, I'm just kidding. It's actually not illegal. But here's the thing. Around here, putting ketchup on a hot dog is a big no-no. Chicagoans say ketchup overpowers all the other flavors. The mustard, the relish, the onions, the pickle, the sports peppers, and it just doesn't belong. The Chicago-style hot dog has a tradition, and ketchup is not part of it. And that's actually where the idea for the design came from. A little local pride, a little humor, and a lot of puff. Well, this is a regular puff. Now, if you want that massive puff, I'm talking about that round, raised, bubbly, big texture, then there's a few extra steps you need to take to get that certain effect. First, build up your stencil by adding more layers of emulsion to your screen. That gives you a thicker stencil, which allows more ink to pass through when you print. Next, you might need to print flash print, then print flash print again, probably 2 to 3 times using a 40 mesh screen. That adds more layers of ink, and more ink means more puff when it cures. And finally, you can bump up the puff additive just a bit. Remember, the standard is 10 to 20% by weight, but if you want extreme puff, lean closer to that 20% mark or slightly above it if you're experimenting. Just keep in mind, more ink requires longer cure times and more issues if your temp is not dialed in correctly. So do a lot of test runs before you go into production. Now let's have a quick recap. Step 1, stir your inks. Make sure all your inks are smooth and mixed well, especially if they've been sitting for a while. Stir at least 2 minutes to get the perfect consistency. Step 2, add puff additive. Mix in 10 to 20% of the Epicure puff additive by the weight into the ink you want to puff. In our case, the red. More additives equals more puff to a point. Step 3. Choose the right mesh. Use a 160 mesh for clean, smooth color prints like the blue and the black. Use a 40 mesh for the puffing to lay down more ink and get that 3D effect. Step 4. Cure it right. Puff cures at 270 Fahrenheit. Use a flash dryer, a heat gun, or a conveyor. Do test runs to find the perfect time and height. In my case, it's about 25 to 30 seconds under a raised flash dryer. And that's it, y'all. That's how you screen print a 3-color print with puff additive. Super fun, super bold, and it literally pops off the shirt. Huge shout out to Screen Print Direct for having me in this channel. It's been an honor to share this process with you. If you learned something new today, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment if you have any questions or if you want to see more tips like this. Once again, my name is 𝗧𝗲𝗅𝗁, also known as Milo from Milo Prints, straight out of Chicago. Thanks again for watching. Have a beautiful day, and God bless you all.